the people, the members of FATF primarily, whoever are sitting and discussing the issues with you, they could get kind of biased in one way or the other?
Yes.
Does it happen? Because you worked in WTO, so that's why I put this question to you.
Yes, I've worked for about 20 years in international organizations. There is always a political bias. So India is one player, but the other big player is the United States. When we are not, the bilateral relations are a little bit shaky.
So they would put pressure on them.
So the US would put pressure. But then there are lots of neutral countries, like the Europeans mostly, who are members of this task force for the region. So if they are convinced, if for example, we now give them this list of legislation, and then also we, they were about what was his name? Hafiz Saeed was one of the. So he was convicted for 5.5 years. His number 2 was convicted. So if we have some solid data, it's sometimes we give some data, and from the other side they've done their own in telling us. They say, look at this. How is this? How is this? But I think this time we are on this time we'll be on a stronger footing.
On a stronger footing. And then what exactly do you mean when we say that we are on a stronger footing? Means that there is this black, then there is this gray, and then there is this white. So moving towards the white, staying in gray, or being white then?
Giving you another example, for example, in 2015-16, we were able to convince them that we are doing something. Even just our what you could say intention or whatever we were doing. So we were taken off that list, this grey list, and then by 2018 they said what you said you are not doing. So we were put back there. So I think there are many neutral countries, and they count a lot.
The number of countries which can support you, because you need to have the number 3 in order to remain in the grey list.
Not to go into the blacklist.
Not to go. What about the grey, sir?
Oh, grey is it's a majority of those.
So we will be getting these 3 votes not to go into the black, but in order to get into white, you need 13 or 11.
Yeah, something like
that.
So,
I mean, we should be in fact targeting that number.
Yes, I think we should get there now. I think.
Do you think we have done some homework?
I think
getting certain countries on board.
Hopefully, with the things that we've displayed to the FATF, that these are the things we're trying to pass. These legislations, we're doing these other steps taken by the ministries and the FPR, and we're trying to have a money trail of each and everything. So now we have the intention of doing that. So hopefully, with these, we've shown enough to hopefully, to be nearer to the out of the grey list.
So satisfactory work has been done.
Hopefully, yes.
All right. Now, sir, so this means that when you talk about is this enough effort, obviously the do more mantra is going to be there, that you need to work on that. We are satisfied, but still you need to work on that particular area, because this is not an easy task. 27 areas where we had a lot of weaknesses, but still at least we are moving in the right direction. Now, sir, another important part is about the legislation that was passed yesterday. There was a lot of hue and cry in both the houses. The opposition was saying that it means that there are certain clauses in which we will be targeted, or we'll be very vulnerable for that matter. But I think, sir, at the end of the day, all is well that ends well. It has been passed. It was a joint session. Don't you think, sir, this is also going to be something very important to show that, despite all odds, we got it done, despite the reservation of the opponent parties or opposing parties or the opposition in general? They eventually signed it, approved it.
Yes, I think originally we were overdoing it, I should say. But then there were some amendments by both. Government agreed. For example, previously, I think the investigator could just go and pick up someone, and on the suspicion you are involved in this money laundering, and now it is you have to get courts involved. So you have to get courts order to be able to do that, to monitor this. So it's a good solution now. I think there's some check now.
As earlier mentioned by Irfan Khori Saab, in fact he said that there is one area that is the legislative part, legislation.
Yes.
Then the administrative. Obviously you need to understand, and then Because I think the legislation has been done, the administrative part is the most important, and then if the administrative part has been done properly, I think it would be very easy for the judicial part to move on. Because if there is like incomplete report, or maybe if it is the wrong person they have picked up, or if there is not enough data against him, I mean that is why either the cases linger on or the judges are not happy with the overall working of the government in that particular part. So do you think the administrative side, which is actually very weak, maybe they do not have the understanding, maybe this is something new, maybe this is the new world order primarily, that now things would be done in this way. Forget about the 19th and the 20th century. This is a different ballgame now. So
I think the biggest issue is that do these organizations or whoever is investigating has the capacity to to investigate, to find out which who is involved in the network, what are the assets, and where is the money coming from, what's the money trail, how many people are involved. So it all depends. I don't think we have the capacity, or we have the people who can make this possible, to have all these things that are required. And when the biggest problem is, as in the case of NAB, is that they do not have enough evidence. People go into court, they get freed, they get out on bail, and if we do not have proper people trained, who are trained to do this kind of thing, experts in this field.
Do you think our police is trained? No. What I'm saying is that I'm not saying that a person should be a PhD in a certain subject. I mean that is required at a different level. But what I'm saying is, like, once I was told that in one of the Jamias in Lahore, they sent a Havaldar and a constable to go and see the God knows what sort of documents were they in fact given to look into. That was a joke, because this is not possible. You need to have the right person for the right job, who should have some sort of expertise. If something is related to SCP, that person should be the master of the field. White collar crime handling, sir. I think that is the question.
Yeah.
Let me start off from you. So this is a white collar crime in one way or the other. And then the more sophisticated you get, the higher you get, then there is a different ballgame altogether. So how many people in Pakistan, I'm sure you have served in so many different organizations, including WTO, how many people have been actually caught in white collar crime in Pakistan and were actually handed over to the right authorities, where they were charged, certain allegations were framed, and then the judicial process went well and they were actually given or rather served the right punishments?
I must say very few, because there's another reason. One is the actual training, etc., but the other is the political will. If the government, whichever government, I'm not saying this government, that government, if there are some people of their own party, etc., they will to prosecute.
That's political victimization.
Yes, it's very little. But if there is opponent, then so it's. But the problem here was that FATF. They would say that big country, 200 million, only one person convicted, or things like that. So now at least they've built up on that. They built some numbers now. So
this is the right way, because lately there was this report that the remittances, they're increasing regularly. I think 2.7, if I'm not wrong, billion again in the previous month. So there's a consistent high. A lot of people believe that it is not primarily due to the great policies of the government, because a lot of people are they're being laid off from their jobs, they're returning to Pakistan, and most likely they're closing their accounts and they are sending it through the proper channels. But at the same time, sir, I'm sure that a lot of people who used to use hundi and hawala means a reference primarily, they are a little scared, so they are also using the right channels. Do you think, both of these statements are correct at some level?
Yes, and also, anytime government gives some kind of amnesty, like they've given for the construction industry, okay, we will not ask the source, and so some money comes that way. So all these things get combined. But also, I think there were, the families back home, I think they were more distressed, so more money is coming from abroad. So it's just that compared to previously, so it's a little higher, so 2 billion, yeah.
I think this hundi is still going to continue. It's going to be, not so many people doing it, but still because the rate that they give you.
Hundi and Hawala is the biggest source in India.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of the legal transaction. So, Hundi and Hawala, I mean, this is going to take time.
Yeah, it will take time because you know even the rate that they offer you is much better. And I would even if if I had some money, maybe if I have a small amount or if I have a big amount to send abroad, the rate that they provide you, banks will never provide you that,
because banks are going to give you a list of 20 pages. You have to go through that. It will take about 1 billion years.
Yeah.
And by the time you get it done, I mean,
and with the remittances coming, there's especially in the Middle East, a lot of the tax that they put on the families as well. So a lot of people they've sent their families back home. They've been sending them money. So that has been also a factor of this remittances.
There are multiple factors.
Yeah, there are multiple factors. But hopefully, it can continue in the coming months. But it's not just a short.
So if I may ask you that if you were a member of FATF and you were supposed to go through this list and the documents which will be provided by Pakistan, according to the current understanding, sir, will you be satisfied?
Yes, because if you go very strictly, then you put the whole world in these lists, because there's so much
there has to be
money, hawala, etc., happening through Dubai. I mean, all the this business, illegal business, etc. So then you put everyone there. So you have to look at relatively. Now Pakistan has made relatively good progress, so Pakistan should be out of that.
Mughal sir.
Yes, a lot of countries, even India is not in they have so much Hundi and Hawala, but they're not in the FATF. And Dubai, yes, this is the biggest source of all the money that goes through, and illegally as well. So hopefully, with the case that we presented, and hopefully we should be getting out of the greatest.
But anyway, sir, let's hope and let's see. It was a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you so much for your presence as well. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah again next week. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.
The ancient city of Taxila is the heart of stonework in Pakistan. This art, which has been preserved and practiced for centuries, can be seen on many major landmarks of the country. Notably, the Pietra Dura work in the Lahore Fort's Sheesh Mahal. These stone products take days to complete and require immense precision and skill from the craftsmen. The final products are perfect for souvenirs, gifts and decoration pieces, each depicting the richness of Pakistani culture at its best. Camel skin and ivory craft are trademarks of Multan's handicraft repertoire. Camel skin is cleaned, dried and mounted onto molds which can be of any shape desired. Multicolored lacquer painting is then used to ornament the molds, which in the end bear a Mughal or Persian feel. Ivory is crafted into pens, chess sets, jewelry and other accessories such as keychains by the expert craftsman. Such detailed work, while being extravagant, is indeed a feat to achieve, and craftsmen of Multan produce beauty with their work which is worthy of global admiration. The enchanting arts and crafts of Pakistan.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Assalamu alaikum. You're watching PTV World. I'm Fahim Bangish with the headline news for this hour. The Prime Minister inaugurates state-of-the-art institute in Haripur. Prime Minister felicitates Suga on election win. Pakistan aspires to enhance relations with Japan. Pakistan and China vow to strengthen bilateral ties. The Prime Minister led recent legislation to foil the enemy design, says Shibli Faraz. In Russian politics, Navalny aides say he was poisoned by a water bottle in the hotel. That's all for now. For further news and live streaming, do log on to our website world.ptv.com.pk. Do log on to our Facebook page with the name of PTV World and follow us on Twitter at WorldPTV. Thank you for joining us.
The Faisal Mosque is the largest mosque in Pakistan. Located in the national capital city of Islamabad. Completed in 1986, it was designed by Turkish architect Vedat Daloki to be shaped like a desert Bedouin's tent. It is situated at the north end of Faisal Avenue, putting it at the northernmost end of the city and the foot of the Margala Hills, the westernmost foothills of the Himalayas. It is located on an elevated area of land against a picturesque backdrop of the Margala Hills. This enviable location represents the mosque's great importance and allows it to be seen from miles around, day and night. The Faisal Mosque is conceived as the national mosque of Pakistan and is named after the late King Faisal bin Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia, who supported and financed the project. It is the largest mosque in South Asia and one of the largest mosques in the world. The Faisal Mosque was the largest mosque in the world from 1986 until 1993, when it was overtaken in size upon the completion of the Hassan II Mosque in Casablanca, Morocco. Subsequent expansions of the Masjid al-Haram, the Grand Mosque of Mecca, and the Masjid al-Nabi, the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, Saudi Arabia during the 1990s, relegated Faisal Mosque to 4th place in terms of size. Architectural wonders of Pakistan.
In order to write about life, first you must live it.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. The legislation did pass yesterday. The government has succeeded in defeating the opposition as far as the legislation. But what does it say about the democratic principles, about what happened yesterday in the National Assembly? We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the parliamentary process, the democratic principles of governance, and whether the conduct yesterday inspires confidence in us today when we look back and at what happened yesterday at the National Assembly. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the missing members who failed to appear as far as the opposition is concerned and resulted in allowing the government a safe passage as far as the bill is concerned. Also, more about what the Prime Minister had to say today when he spoke about his giving all sorts of confidence to the opposition is concerned, other than making any compromises on accountability. More of that today. I have with me Ibrahim Khan, who's an MNA with PTI. Thank you so much for joining us today. Asad Rahim Khan, who's a legal expert and analyst. Thank you for joining us. And Sharmila Farooqi, leader PPP. Thank you for being with us today. Ji, Ibrahim Saab, to start off with you. What happened yesterday, certainly was fruitful as far as, your government was concerned.
Sure.
But about walking out, no confidence, all of the things that other than that, the conduct in the assembly yesterday. What do you think about that? What do you feel about that as far as the conduct of the opposition is concerned on, certainly there were missing members, we'll be talking about that also, but more about the parliamentary process. What's your take on that?
I think it was totally in accordance with the law and the norms of the parliament, and people on both sides.
But the ruckus in the parliament, there is that always happens. That has been happening as far as if you look at our own history, parliamentary history.
The sad part is that if it was just a normal legislation and if they had opposed it, then that was fine.
Right.
Since this was this particular FATF issue was directly related to our national security and also to our economic hardships, I think the opposition should have played more maturely and should have, acted very responsibly, and should not have had displayed the image they did in day before yesterday's session. But ultimately we succeeded. There were people on both sides who weren't present, like 4 or 5 of our people were also not there. I mean, people have sometimes they're sick, or the other times they have some other engagements, or some are out of the country, and
but there were
things
some
of that
36
nature.
members if we look back, and maybe if we 13 of them, or
exactly,
they have to give that kind of.
Exactly, that is true, and that shows basically their lack of confidence in their leadership. That yes, it can be the number can be from 5 to 10. Right. On and off, but 36 missing all of a sudden was, that
especially
also,
on such an important
that
day
also reflects the lack of confidence on their leadership. And now the opposition has to decide which party had the least people not being present in the session, or the. Right.
I will come back to you. I want to talk about the Prime Minister's statement when he said today, it was rather a very cutting statement. He did speak. He said that the interests of the opposition don't seem to align with the interests of Pakistan. And
absolutely, absolutely. Okay. We you see, this is what the government of India wants. Is that we should be from grey list, we should slip into the blacklist. And by doing what they did in the session was in fact towing the lines of the Modi government.
Okay.
They really, that was a precedent they have set, that their own personal priorities are more important than the country or the priorities of the nation. And unfortunately that display was, I'm glad that it was defeated, and the sanity prevailed, and we were successfully able to pass the legislation on FATF.
Right. I'm going to go to Sharmila Farooqi. Ji, Sharmila Farooqi, what's your take on this? How do you see what happened yesterday? Are you, the missing members allowing a safe passage to, the government to pass the bill? What does it say about your leadership and your party, about the opposition as a whole? Do you think that there is a lack of leadership here? There is a lack of confidence here, which is what Ibrahim Khan Saab is saying?
Thank you, Mara. I think what happened yesterday was very, very unfortunate with regard to the fact the way the entire process or the entire session was conducted by the speaker himself. Firstly, the opposition demands that the Charter bill should be discussed clause-wise at the floor of the assembly was rejected, which is very unfortunate. The opposition has a right to discuss every single clause and debate on it, and also put forward amendments if they see fit. That was not allowed, and those amendments, Asad is sitting over here, I'm sure he will agree. One of the amendments was about, the following a due process of law while arresting a person. The entire process of FATA and the entire, the purpose of the, passing this bill for FATA, which definitely did not have the requirement to just arrest a person without an arrest warrant. Here the opposition was trying to safeguard the rights of a common man. Tomorrow they could come and arrest you, Mahrukh, without an arrest warrant, put you in custody for 180 days and not even produce you in front of a court. What kind of a law is this? And this was not a requirement of FATA. So there were amendments like this which needed to be brought in, that needed to be discussed, and let the assembly vote on it. Secondly, as your honorable guest was speaking, I mean, some of their members were missing, some of ours were missing, and ours were missing because Mr. Fuchicha is in jail and there was no production order for him. Similarly, Rubina Khalid from the Senate, she's unwell and she's hospitalized. Similarly, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari could not attend because he's unwell. So there were, some genuine reasons too. Now, what the government did was that they also, the speaker, unfortunately, had become a party with the government. And he also counted those unelected special assistant and advisors, which cannot be counted. I mean, only the members, sitting members who are members of the parliament can be counted in the head count. And despite repeated requests from the opposition for a recount, if the speaker felt that, we don't have the numbers and he wanted to side with the government and just pass those bills, just bulldoze those bills, he could have accepted our demand of recounting. And then I think a fair count would have come forward, whether our members are missing or their members are missing and who has more majority. But the way it was conducted yesterday, I think there's a very, very wrong precedent set yesterday. And I think in future, PTI is going to keep on doing bulldozing bills, and again, presenting a bill by Mr. Babar Awan, who is not a member of the National Assembly or the Senate. He cannot present a bill. That is against the rules of business. I mean, if you are not a member of the parliament, you cannot present a bill.
Business
it has the
Parliament Assembly is concerned. I'm going to go to Asad Rahim Khan ji. Asad, what's your take on this as a lawyer, as far as rules of business are concerned, as far as the conduct is concerned? Other than, of course, democratic principles, parliamentary, style of politics, I want to talk about that. But what about the legal side of things? What happened yesterday in the assembly? How do you see the conduct of the speaker? How do you see the way that the bill was presented and debated? Like Sharmila Farooqi is saying. What's your take on this?
Ji Mahrukh, thank you so much for having me. I think if what Sharmila Sahiba is saying is correct, then that is in. Look at this again. Under the Constitution, I don't think there's any bar from advisor Dr. Babar Awan tabling a bill. The Constitution says that advisors and special assistants cannot vote in Parliament. They can take part in proceedings. They can, and so can the Attorney General for Pakistan. To the extent of them being in Parliament, to the extent of them being a part of the proceedings or tabling bills, that much is kosher within our constitutional scheme and within the rules of business. But as Sharmila Sahiba is saying, if the Speaker indeed counted their votes, I don't think there's any process that governs as much. There is a judgment to that effect by the Islamabad High Court with regards to special assistance to the Prime Minister. In terms of what exactly they can do, what their functions are, they are not supposed to exercise the functions of a ministry. They are only there for advising the Prime Minister of Pakistan or assisting the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So, long answer to your short question, they can take part in proceedings, they cannot vote. Overall, with regards to FATF, I would agree with what Ibrahim Saab is saying in terms of this is something we do need to take seriously. I think the people or the member states making up FATF have very checkered histories of their own. They have a long history of money laundering as well. They are primarily using this as an instrument of coercion for Pakistan. However, that doesn't mean that we don't take it seriously. A FATF blacklisting or coercive measures from FATF would actually knock us out of the world economy in many ways, whether that's through formal banking channels, whether that's through just the what is the economy. It was this legislation.
Sorry, I think there's a problem with audio. I'll come back to you, Asad. I'm going to go to Ibrahim Sabji.
Yeah, I think he has made it very clear. And this is exactly what our law minister said. He narrated the same definition of law, like they can table the bill, but they cannot vote. And that's exactly what happened. Their vote was not counted.
Right.
What Sharmila is saying is that, or she is under the, she's thinking that his vote was counted. No, his vote was not counted once. It is their right, the right of the opposition to ask for the counting.
Yes.
Which they did. The counting was exercised. They turned out to be 190 and we were 200. So with even though a slim margin, we were able to,
right, I think by 6 votes, if I'm
by 10.
By 10, okay.
We had 200 and they had 190. That was the declared, decree by the Speaker.
And out of the 36, I mean, they could have, of course, if a lot of their members had been there, even if half of them out of 36, then they could have, given the government a tough competition as far as if they were feeling so strong.
That is just an assumption, and rightfully so. Yes, they would have, and the same way, we had our 5 to 6 members missing also. So,
but what do you think? Do you think that as far as, of course, I'll go to Sharmila Farooqi Saiba also, and, someone from the PMLN also, about what they feel is the reason behind this. But do you think it's maybe a lack of confidence in the leadership, or a lack of leadership at this time? Because we see, with the PMLN also, there has been, there seems to have been a problem as far as, well, not a problem, but a confusion certainly, as far as the leadership is concerned. And not everyone, as far as the members are concerned, seem privy as to what the strategy is, as far as the political strategy is concerned. As members themselves seem to be at a loss. Do you think that it's that also?
The leadership of both main parties, Pakistan People's Party and Pakistan Muslim League N, both of their leadership is justifiably, with lots of proofs, their involvement in money laundering has been detected.
Okay.
So when the money laundering law as part of the FATF gets passed, they feel threatened, and it does not serve their purpose, and it's directly in contradiction to their personal interests. As a consequence, they wanted to, they had to oppose it, but you see, when it comes down to the question of, or to the point when you have to balance, or you have to weigh between your motherland, your country, and your personal grievance, you always go for your motherland.
Right.
Which I wish if they would have done that.
Right.
And they have the courts available to them, and if they feel that if they are being maligned into something, or they have been unjustifiably being nominated in some kind of money laundering issue, the courts are there to give them the protection.
You think that as far as the issue of confidence is concerned, do you think that it's more about, as far as, the Prime Minister is he said the same thing, he talked about patriotism, and that's what it seems like from his statement, when he's saying that the interests of the opposition don't align. That's a very strong statement to make.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, because you see, again, opposition I will only limit to these two families who are fortunately or unfortunately head of these two parties.
Right.
So these are two family-owned parties who have been found or caught involved in money laundering, and now they're trying to head things in a different direction, and their party unfortunately have to follow them. And out of those 36 who did not, I would rather say.
Do you think that maybe they tacitly wanted affirm your belief, as you know, they are in tune with what the government believes as far as the bill is concerned?
I assume, and I'm almost sure. I haven't talked to them on the subject once I get to meet them, but I strongly feel this is how they felt. They have to weigh between their own country and loyalty to the party and loyalty to the leadership. Or leadership is, again, in a democratic country, you do not run inherited politics.
Right.
Democracy means, anybody and everybody is allowed to be a prime minister or a president or a president of a party or whatever. But in these two parties, that's not the case.
Right. Okay. Sharmila Farooqui, that PMLN leadership has earlier said that they will question their members who were not present as far as the voting was concerned. And of course, out of all the 36, a lot of them, maybe 13 or 14 of them, could have had genuine reasons, like you're saying. But there might have been other members who were absent. Do you think that PPP will also do that? PPP will also ask their their party members, the parliamentarians from the People's Party, why they were absent?
Well, Mahrukh, as I said earlier, just a few handful of our members were absent, and they had genuine reasons for doing so. 11 members apparently were from PMLN, and there were 3 from JUI, 3 from National Party, 2 from ANP, and 2 from P.
But Sharmila, what about, as far as your future, as the opposition's future, the All Parties Conference also, what does it mean for the opposition? Because there seems to be, a lot said as far as the opposition is concerned. We saw Maulana Fazlur Rahman also when he spoke. But when it comes down to it, it seems to be flaky from what happened yesterday. That there's a lot of talk, but when it comes to a show, unfortunately, the opposition hasn't been able to give that kind of a tough time to the government till now. Why do you think that is?
What happened yesterday, Mahrukh, was very unfortunate as far as parliamentary process and following due process of law in the parliament is concerned, and the himself. Now, as far as missing members are concerned, as I said earlier, they had genuine reasons for it. And I've already told you that. Secondly,
as far as the conduct of the opposition together is concerned, as a whole is concerned, as far as their own, power is concerned, a power show is concerned, as far as, against the government is concerned, don't you think it gives a message to the government that, they really can't give that kind of a tough time that they've been talking about?
Okay, can I come to that? I just wanted to complete what I was saying earlier.
Gigi, please.
What I wanted to say is that there's a lot of, unfortunately, the rhetoric that they're trying to build here, and the narrative that they're trying to build here is that, the other two parties, which means People's Party and PMLN, are not interested in the well-being of Pakistan. All they're interested in an NRO and, getting certain amendments in the NAB law. Now, this is very, very unfortunate and absolutely incorrect. There's no connection between FATF and the NAB law. If we wanted certain amendments to be included in FATF, as I said earlier, one of them, and very important one, was that no person should be arrested without due process of law and without an arrest warrant. This is against, this is a violation of human rights, and I'm sure your other two guests would agree with me on this. Secondly, as far as NAB law is concerned, we have put in amendments for the last 2 years. And it's not only, voices being raised from People's Party benches or PMLN. The Supreme Court order in the Khwaja brothers case, I think that the judgment itself is, I think it's a charge sheet against the NAB. Similarly, if you talk about Human Rights Watch, and even if you read the declaration by the All Parties Conference of the Supreme Court Bar today, even they have asked and have agreed to the fact that there needs to be a new NAB law. So these voices of concerns are being raised from all quarters. It's not only us. If there are certain issues with a law and human rights are being violated, I think it's in the hands of the parliamentarians and the present government and the opposition to debate on it, to bring in certain amendments, to make a better. There's no harm in this. Secondly, your question was that this shows a weakness of the leadership, or what would happen of the APC. This has nothing to do with the APC. This was a law wherein opposition wanted to pass certain amendments, which wasn't allowed. They wanted recounting, which wasn't allowed. Unfortunately, the process of law wasn't followed over there, and the rules of business were violated. Now, as far as the APC is concerned, yes, opposition parties are united on an agenda, and that agenda is how to move forward with the present government in this scenario. Because unfortunately, for the last 2 years, the debt accumulation has been humongous, and it has broken all records in the past history of Pakistan. Similarly,
Asad, Sharmila, if you allow me to interject, really, what is the strategy of the opposition at this time? Are they going to march on the streets? Are they going to, there's a lot being said even about resignation at this time. Different people are saying different things. What's the strategy of the opposition? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would not be in a position to tell you what the strategy is before the APC is conducted, and it is for the APC to decide what strategy they come up with. I cannot sit here and tell you beforehand, the APC is on the 20th, and I cannot tell you.
I'm going to go to Asad. Asad, as far as the legal side of things are concerned, Sharmila Farooqi Sahiba, she said a lot of things. What's your take on this? As far as the passage of the bill is concerned, as far as voting is concerned, of course, you've earlier said that the rules of conduct seem to have been observed as far as what happened yesterday. What's your take on this?
Well, I would just repeat myself that to the extent of special advisors taking part in the process, they can. The Constitution allows it.
No,
to
but
the
other
extent
than
that
that, as far as the debate is concerned.
No, I think what you have is a fairly kosher bill. I think if we look on the other side, if you're trying to nest national security provisions within that bill, if you're trying to piggyback on what every citizen of Pakistan is concerned, that is to say FATF, and that is to say being knocked out of a formal economy, and you want to increase detention times, or you want to curtail due process, I think that is something that is concerning. I think the opposition raised that point, and at the end of the day, that bill did not carry forward. I'm sure Ibrahim Saab or Sharmila Sahiba would know more as to if it made the finish line. My understanding is it did not. With regards to procedure, I just think it's very important that we now maybe shift the discussion from whether parliamentarians were absent, who came, who didn't come, who should have come, and actually think what our legislature would look like if it was slightly more informed, if it was slightly more policy-based, and if we didn't have these nth moment surprises. Now, we saw with Mr. Sadiq Sanjrani Saab's appointment as Chairman Senate, and then we also saw when there was a no-confidence motion passed against him that the opposition, when it ran in with a full head of steam, did not make it to the finish line and did not follow through. And the government, unfortunately, also seems to push through ordinances, seems to push through these ad hoc bills as and when it is necessitated. Now, FATF was, if you'll excuse the metaphor, a sword. It was a sword of Damocles that was hanging over everybody, and so we saw this raft of bills. I think what we need to be looking towards is a concerted effort. Prime Minister Imran Khan Saab said that there will be Prime Minister's questions. We haven't seen that yet. For the opposition's point of view, there is no shadow budget. There is no shadow policy. There are no shadow ministers. So I think what we need is a better standard of discussion, a better standard of legislative debate in which we stop focusing on how many people came, what was the quorum, what did people say, somebody said something really sarcastic, and instead focus on policy-oriented, legislation-oriented lawmaking.
But of course, you know, they would have to be present for that kind of legislation. They would have to have, like you're saying, for the quality-based legislation, for there to be quality-based debate, for there to be, you know, other than politics or other than Ibrahim Khan Sahab, other than, your government has been saying.
I think, Mahrukh, what I'm saying is the parliament, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, it is more than a debating club. It is the chosen representatives of the people, and we need our parliamentarians to have these discussions with empirical data behind them. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Right, okay. Ji, Ibrahim Khan Sahab, your take on this?
I agree with him, what Asad is saying, and there should be a quality debates, and you see, the quality debate will only come in when your total concentration
it's not only the opposition. He's also talking about the Prime Minister, and you know how there should have been the Prime Minister, you know, the questions to be asked from the Prime Minister for him to have answered, to answer those questions, which was something that the Prime Minister talked about earlier on. So it's not only the opposition.
I know. It's not only opposition, but that is also directly an effect of the opposition, that every time he was there present in the assembly, the way the opposition behaved, I mean, literally went on to cursing and name calling and on and on and on, sort of a behavior by the opposition is simply not acceptable. And even Prime Minister had to even mention in his speech a day before yesterday that I'm glad that today, since they have just walked out, that I can now stand up and talk to the parliamentarian, because otherwise, when they're there, they don't even let the Prime Minister talk. So how do you expect him to be there if they are not behaving in a manner that or the norms of the parliament, and you know, taking I mean, all those things into consideration? I mean, they get on to the I mean, on a very personal level, like hitting below the belt, sort of things which we definitely cannot, I mean, you know, talk on the TV here, but I mean, which is very unfortunate. It should, I mean, if opposition can mend their ways and behave in a more sober and a mature way.
I will come back to you then.
And I think that the Prime Minister's response will be the same way. I mean, he will come and he will attend if they have some reasonable questions. But if they had to just, I mean,
right, okay, you're saying
do what they have been doing in the last 2 years.
I will come back to you. Ji, Kaisar Ahmed Sheikh Saab from the PMLN. Ji, what's your take on what happened? Kaisar Saab, we've been talking about the missing members yesterday. We've been talking about, you know, how their failure to turn up, and a lot of them were from your party, did allow a safe passage to the bill for the government. You know, I don't want to keep on talking about that, but a quick comment as far as, are you going to be asking them? You know, because we earlier on saw comments from the PMLN leadership that they do intend to question their, you know, their parliamentarians from their party who failed to turn up.
Yes, some people, members were missing, they could not come, but actually I asked today about most of them. They had a genuine problem. Someone was quite sick. He was not. Someone had a cardiac problem. So like this, there was some. But eventually, even still, all members should have been there as far as possible. So the members were not there. Although we had majority, we could not get this bill disapproved. So that was a problem. But actually, you see, this bill, FATF, it is not FATF related, because I, being a member of the Finance Committee, deliberated for 4 hours about this bill, and I particularly mentioned to the Treasury benches, I said, if there is anything about FATF, let me know. I take guarantee to get it passed. This is not, if FATF has told me some condition, let us know. Just reveal. But they did not. And then how could this liberty of the people or the business people should be restricted and they should be subjected to imprisonment and all this that without any logic and without any reason. So it is not a bill for the promotion of economy and promotion of business. I feel it's a very negative bill. I did oppose. I also submitted my amendment, although I could not talk in National Assembly. You see, it is very clear.
As far as, there has been, as far as the lack of seriousness is concerned, of course, we've seen a lot of walking out, we've seen a lot of ruckus in the Assembly, but we haven't really seen a serious effort from the opposition, including the PMLN, like, we haven't seen a budget come from you, which, can actually point out the problems. There's been a lot of hue and cry about what the issues are, but we haven't seen, any alternatives come up. We haven't seen, as far as the opposition is concerned, we haven't seen any role, of a valid critique and alternative to the bills, other than the NAB, which of course is another issue, because the government maintains that there is a vested interest where NAB is involved because of the whole accountability narrative.
No, you see, how can you say it was not serious? Because neither our leader of opposition nor the leader of the leading party was even allowed to talk about this bill. How could he be seriously tell and negate about the points? He was not allowed even to talk. So this is not the way to pass bill. It is normal practice is that whenever there is a bill is presented, there's some explanation, some details is mentioned, and then anyone who had asked for the amendment, then he is allowed to speak. So even the leader of opposition was not allowed. So what was the other alternative? What could we do? And moreover, I told you this is not. It is going to be.
The other alternative was not coming.
It is the pretext that it was FATA related. It was never FATA related. If it is like that, so tell me, in India, in Sri Lanka, or in other Bangladesh, in our region, somebody has passed this type of bill. No one has restricted the businessmen so much. And with this bill, I being a business representative can say with authority that foreign investment will shy from Pakistan. Do you
think that there is, as far as the PMLN is concerned, there has been a lot of critique about, a missing strategy, a missing, leadership, so to speak. Of course, we've seen how Mia Saab, the elder Mia Saab is abroad because of his health issues. We've seen Shehbaz Sharif Saab, Mariam Nawaz. There has been, whether who's going to lead the party, there has been that confusion. There has also been, a lack of, what can one say? There doesn't seem to be a strong narrative coming out of the PMLN. There doesn't seem to be a strong strategy coming out. Do you think that,